In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I am your host, Charles King. I'm going to start with our Black History reflection on about Prince. Prince Rogers Nelson was more than a musician. He was a revolution, a composer, a producer, multi-instrumentalist, and cultural architect. Prince redefined what it meant to be an artist in America. He challenged the music industry, fought for ownership of his masters, and proved that Black creativity is limitless, uncontainable, and sovereign. Prince was a master of reinvention. He blended genres, broke rules, and refused to let institutions dictate his identity for his artistry. His fight for artistic freedom became a blueprint for generations of creators demanding control over their work, their image, and their legacy. Prince taught us that brilliance is not meant to fit inside a box. It is meant to break the box open. And tonight, as we examine the systems shaping our nation, from government transparency to economic instability, we honor Prince's legacy of truth, courage, and uncompromising authenticity. Now, let me tell you guys what this show is going to be about tonight. We break down the issues shaping our nation with clarity, honesty, and the courage to say what others won't. Tonight is a solo show, just you, me, and the truth. We're living in a moment where information is fragmented, institutions are strained, and the American people are being asked to navigate crises without transparency, without guidance, and without accountability from the systems that claim to serve them. Tonight, we're going to talk about the stories behind the headlines, the parts they don't explain, the context they don't give, and the consequences they don't want to discuss. From Jeffrey Epstein files to the partial government shutdown, from rising prices to global conflict, from national debt to federal healthcare cuts, this episode is about understanding the bigger picture. Because when people understand the truth, they can protect themselves, their families, and their communities. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about, and the first thing that I want to bring to you guys' attention is, there's so much going on, especially on the World Wide Web, when we talk about the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, when they talk about these files, we know that there are several documents that are not being released, and they go back and forth with all these different things that they want people to believe one way or the other. The public has only seen a fraction of the documents. Many names remain redacted or sealed, and the case involves powerful individuals across politics, finance, entertainment, and global institutions. Now, the reason the full files are not released is tied to, as they say, national security claims, ongoing investigations, protection of high-profile individuals, and legal agreements and sealed testimonies. Now let's think about let's get into this way. When it's like dealing with these people that, as they say, are high profile individuals in this top 1% of this country, and what most likely may have happened is they have committed it seems like they're saying that they have committed crime. So if that is the case, the catch-all is to say that it's a national security claim, a national security issue. So if it's a national security issue, does that mean that what they're saying about these files are global? Now let's think about this when I say if they're global, because if they're global, then that means that it's not just the America upper crust that's a part of this. It's all of these other countries as well. Now, if that is the case, and what has allegedly been put out and some of the things that I have seen that's actually dealing with issues like things that are dealing with kids, that's a problem. Now, if that's a problem, now we know that's a problem, but because it's a problem, why would we hold back on having these files released? Now, that sounds like to me that it sounds like a parental complex. Do as I say, not as I do. Meaning, these people are allowed to break rules or break laws and do the most insidious things that you could ever do, and they just have no repercussion? Or is this about what's really happening and been happening in America for the last 50, 60 years, and nobody has really brought it to light until now? Now, when they talk about ongoing investigations, they may have several of those. But as a result of that, that does not mean that the people's documents should not be coming to the people, because those documents belong to people such as myself, you, and everybody else that's here in America that's paying the taxes here in this country. So those are our documents. But they're still refusing to give us those documents. And when they want to give documents, they're redacting. So it sounds like to me that if you've got this much redacting going on, that you're covering up something. You're covering up some kind of crime. And there are so many people to be implicated, according to this, that we just don't know who to believe or who to trust. So it goes back to this old adage of when we start the divide when we talk about political parties. You see, this ain't politics, because according to the things that I've read about this Jeffrey Epstein situation, these are crimes, because these are crimes committed against young children and women and some young men as well. Now, what I don't get is how we can have our mainstream media to not come out and inform the American people as to what is transpiring and what we should be looking for and what these documents are saying. Now, we all know that, we've got these big time media conglomerates that may have these documents or whatever have you, but we can expect them to do their jobs because they're under the ropes and the hands and the ties of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has told them that they are not allowed to tell the people the things that they should be telling them. So let me give you an example here. Imagine a case where releasing names could implicate sitting officials, international partners, intelligence assets, and billionaires with political influence. Now, that is where we are, and that is the real part about this whole thing. The reason why this is the real part in the whole thing is because, one, we know that these billionaires are the ones that create these political PACs. So when they create these political PACs, that means that they too are paying politicians to do their bidding. Okay, again, me and you and all of us that's way under that radar, the Mr. and Mrs. America, we can't afford this. So these people are paying people to do their bidding, but we vote them into office. Now we'll come back. We'll talk about that conflict because I want that. That's something I think that we all should think about. We put them into office, but they do the bidding for other people and other countries, but not for us. Think about that and let that sit in for a second. Now, the level of exposure could destabilize institutions, trigger lawsuits, and reveal networks the government is not prepared to publicly acknowledge. Okay, the government is not prepared to acknowledge an enormous amount of things because there's several crimes that have been committed by this government that we can go with plenty of things to talk about when it comes to that. But you see, what this means is that they can impose the will on the smaller person, and the smaller person just has to take it. That's what they're saying. Now, I don't know many people that would sit and just accept people committing crimes against them because they're a billionaire. No, that just don't work for me. So what they're doing is they're giving the public the safe version, not the full truth. And so here is, let me just give you some names. I'm going to give you some names of some of these people that they're talking about that's been released, that's in these documents. Okay, we've got Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Now he is in the documents. And he appears hundreds of times in the 2026 document release. Emails include invitations for Epstein to dine in Buckingham Palace, and Epstein offering to introduce him to a 26-year-old Russian woman. Photos appear to show him kneeling over an unidentified woman on the floor, accused by Virginia Giuffre of being trafficked to him at age 17. But he denies this. He was arrested in the UK on suspicion of misconduct in public office, not sexual abuse. Now get this, if the girl was trafficked, that is more than just a crime, especially the sexual abuse part, but he was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The next name, Bill Gates. What the files show, scheduled to testify. He was scheduled to testify before the House Oversight about his relationship with Epstein. He acknowledged meeting Epstein multiple times after Epstein's 2008 conviction, calling it a huge mistake. He denies witnessing or participating in any illegal conduct. Now, what goes on further is that, he supposedly had an STI or an STD from the women that he was messing with. And me guessing, I'm wondering if this is why him and his wife Melinda divorced. So if they divorced, and when she was asked the question about him cheating multiple times, she said only he can answer that question. Now, again, we're talking about children and young women that have been trafficked to be abused, and most likely some of them apparently, I think they have been killed. Killed. I don't know what kind of sick game that is, but this is horrible. The next name, Elon Musk. He appears in email exchanges in 2012 and 2013 discussing potential visits to Epstein's island. Files show planned visits though it's unclear if they occurred. Musk publicly stated he refused Epstein's invitations. How many of you believe that? The next name is Richard Branson. You know, Mr. Virgin Records. He exchanged numerous emails with Epstein, including invitations to Branson's private island. He suggested Epstein rehabilitate his public image by having Bill Gates vouch for him. Branson's company says all interactions were in group business settings and ended once allegations surfaced. How many of you believe that? How many of you believe that? The next name is the Donald. He appears in photos and unsubstantiated FBI tips, including in the files. Epstein's seized documents include framed photos of the two together. Emails show Epstein discussing how Trump might respond publicly to questions about their relationship. Trump has denied wrongdoing and has publicly distanced himself from Epstein. Now, this is after the fact of listening today of a hearing or just a meeting at the House of Representatives in D.C. that one of the congressmen from New York mentioned Donald's name several times and stated that the documents show clearly that he had sex with a young girl that was 13 years old. As a matter of fact, it was 3 times, but the second time it says that the girl bit him in the place. She bit him in the place. And he slapped the girl and told them to get her out the room. Now, again, all of this is really sad, but this is also really, really sick. This is really sick. The next person that's on my list that I have is Lawrence Summers. Now, he's the former Harvard president and U.S. Treasury Secretary. He was the U.S. Treasury Secretary under Barack Obama. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this or not. When Obama took office in 2009, it was like 6 months into that presidency. I want to say 6 months to a year within that presidency. He and Summers had a bad falling out, and he was fired. But it says emails show close ties with Epstein even after 2008 conviction. Exchanges include personal commentary and Epstein offering assistance. Summers stepped down from Harvard's role following the release. The next person is Boris Brende. He's the president of the World Economic Forum. He resigned after documents revealed friendly correspondence with Epstein years after his conviction. Messages included the thanks, my friend, and plans to meet. No criminal wrongdoing was alleged. Do y'all believe that? There's Tommy Mottola, former Sony Music CEO. Nearly 1,000 references to him in the files provided Epstein with contact info for a private investigative firm and denies knowing about Epstein's crime. Do y'all believe that? Then there's Leon Black, the billionaire, Apollo Global Management. He was investigated for sexual abuse allegations connected to Epstein though no charges were filed. He maintained a long-term financial relationship with Epstein. Do y'all believe that no crimes took place? Then there's Bill Clinton. Clinton appears in flight logs and photos, including trips with Epstein. He denies knowledge of any abuse. Files show he was on a flight with Epstein, Kevin Spacey, and others during a trip to Africa. Now, remember, he denied the situation with Monica Lewinsky as well. So that leaves your mind to go where you think it needs to go when it comes to this situation. Now, the other names that were figures that were repeatedly appearing in these files, even though they weren't accused of any crimes, there was Peter Mandelson, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Ehud Barak, Les Wexner, Noam Chomsky, and Sergey Brin and Peter Thiel. All of these people were listed. Peter Thiel was listed in contact books. Noam Chomsky was listed as an acquaintance. Les Wexner was Epstein managed his finances, long-term close relationship. Ehud Barak is a former Israeli prime minister. He appears in the contact books. Chris Tucker appears in flight photos, no allegations. Kevin Spacey appears in flight photos, no charges related to Epstein. But Peter Mandelson is a UK ambassador. He was arrested on misconduct charges, not sexual abuse. Now, that leaves your mind up to thinking about how this works and where you see it. And see, we know that, just appearing in the files, now I have to say this, because their names appear in the files, it does not mean necessarily that they committed a crime. It does not mean that. But how the justice system goes, especially here in America, is that you're guilty by association. And if you're guilty by association, they establish a case on you. So my thing is, does that mean that the same goes for these people? Or does that change? Because, you see, there's a tiered list of these influential names in the Epstein orbit. And so the thing is, as you think about these tiers, because I broke them down into three. Tier one is your direct repeated association plus power. Okay, that's Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Les Wexner, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and Leon Black. Now, tier two people are repeated social professional contacts. Larry Sumner, Ehud Barak, Alan Dershowitz, George Brende, Tommy Mottola, Glenn Dubin, Eva Dubin. And tier three are documented contacts, which are unclear depth, that is. That's where Donald Trump is classified as one of those people. Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Sergey Brin, Peter Thiel, Noam Chomsky, Richard Branson, and various academics and CEOs. academics, and CEOs. What I need you guys to understand is this: there's a commonality with most of these people. And I say most of them because that don't include Donald Trump, but most of these people are actually touched by Harvard University. They all have a contact there. They all have a contact there. What is that saying? What's going on there? And again, see, dots are easy to be connected, but that's something I think that if you really want to think about that, that's something to think about. Now, so as we talk about, this timeline and connections for Jeffrey Epstein, now I want you guys to think about this. Um, his early networking and finance in the 80s to mid 90s, he was a Wall Street and financier. Um, Lex Wexner became his most important patron, and his social climbing started at that point, where he was building a reputation as a mysterious financier, cultivating lawyers, bankers, and socialites in New York and Palm Beach. Now, what this means is because he was part of this new wave of what they call creative financing that had started here in America when it came to the bank. He was already connected, but he was able to connect himself to many, many other politicians and big name folk, the academia folk, and so forth. And they all came into fold. And that's when everything else, whatever it is that took place, that's how that went. And so his consolidation phase was from the mid 90s to 2005. That's where his political connections rose. He was photographed and was socializing with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He appears in proximity to Bill Clinton, including later documented flights. His celebrity and academic network, parties and dinners with actors, models, and media figures. And he began courting academics and scientists, positioning himself as a donor and intellectual patron. Now, the first three criminal cases in 2008, he pled. 2005 to 2008 is it was the time frame of that, and there was a Palm Beach investigation. There was a non-prosecution agreement that was also done on that plea deal. And key points for the key things about this is they were able to take all of themselves out of harm's way because of whatever connections there were to whom or whatever that was that they came to be a part of. So the post conviction rehab and respectability push was 2008 to 2015. And so that's the academic and philanthropic front. So with that, and going all the way through this whole entire situation here, what we're able to find is that all of these high profile men were abusers. Every single one of them. Every single one of them had the opportunity to be around young kids and women that they trafficked. Every last one of them. So my thing is, I'm still trying to understand, you know, how this gets to be to this point. But according to research, what was founded, and that is why DOJ is withholding or heavily redacting the Epstein related files. It says, for legal reasons, the DOJ cites ongoing investigations on related cases, privacy and safety of victims and witnesses, grand jury secrecy rules, law enforcement techniques, and sources. The second reason is political and institutional incentives. This is the where and why that gets more uncomfortable and more interesting because we're talking about we're talking about the protection of institutions, not just individuals. And so they're figuring that because this crime is with this particular person, that it does not need to be divulged. Now, I will tell you guys this, and I found this really interesting. There is, when I was in grad school, in my econ class, there actually was a section in there talking about crimes and with high profile people. And it says that there is no need to prosecute high profile individuals because it gets us nowhere. So it's basically saying that there's a third tier to law. And that is when you're at this tier, it matters not what you can do, what you do, you can do whatever you like to do. And so when you talk about the inside that as well, it's about the risk and the implicating powerful, unchargeable individuals. Why are they considered unchargeable? And you got president anxiety. And so I understand why there may be anxiety, but anxiety does not mean that these people get to break the law, which means apparently they can get to break the law. But in that whole process, how is it that anything these people do is unlawful? I care less about how much money you got. Because if we do the same crime, and since I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire, you get to throw the book at me and just totally ruin my life and cause anything that you can do that's ruined in my life. But with these people, they're just untouchable. Now, I mean, I really don't understand how is it that people are not seeing that this is a problem because it is. Now, the FOIA and court order tug of war. Because of FOIA, when people go into the Freedom of Information Act and they are trying to get these documents. They're making it difficult for you to get the documents. They're making it difficult. And the court ordered unsealing, but DOJ is still resisting. So, um, so just when it comes down to this, we're not. It's like we don't care about the victims. We don't care about the law, and we don't care about how this hurts the real people, which are us, the people that have to do most of what's happening here in the country. But we also get the brunt. So now I'm going to move over, and I hope that as you guys are watching the show, I really do want you to give me your comments and your feedback and tell me how you feel about these things because we're all affected by this. And if we're all affected by this, then this is something that, voicing more than just your opinion, but how you feel about this is something it gives you a sense of relief, but it also tells you that you've got to be on top of who you are in your life for as long as that is, because you never know what these kind of people will be doing or what they're capable of doing. Because they're capable of doing an enormous amount of things. Because I think anytime you get to traffic humans and nothing's done about it, yeah, we're facing a problem. We're facing a real problem. And we here in America, we the people, we need to stand up and we need to make these changes. We all need to be a part of this. So let me talk a little bit about this partial government shutdown and the impact on the economy. Because now this is something else that's really causing an enormous amount of harm. And the harm that it's causing is, is causing all of us to have to do extra, extra things in order to make our lives better when we didn't ask for our representatives to go to DC to be a part of some kind of shell game. Because that's what I call it, a shell game. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or a Democrat. It's a shell game because you're all one and the same and you're all doing the same things, but you're all doing it from a different perspective. You see, Democrats are ones that are throwing the bricks and hiding their hands. Republicans are up in your face with it and telling you that I don't like you, I like this, I like that, and this is what's going to happen. Either way, I don't find any of that to be something that's savory. That's something that I would actually accept and I would also defend. I just couldn't do any of that because anything that's causing harm to me, I don't want that to happen. I want that remedy. But of course, those that benefit from that, they don't want that change. They don't want that change. So let me talk about this partial government shutdown and the impact on the economy. Federal workers are furloughed or unpaid. Delays in services, passport IRS processing, federal courts, reduced consumer spending, slowed economic activity. Now, when we think about this, the important thing is that not all of the government was shut down because they funded the majority of it, but a lot of it they did not. And again, they did not. See, um, a shutdown is not just a political disagreement, it's an economic chokehold when millions of workers lose paychecks. The ripple effects hits rent, groceries, transportation, and local businesses. Okay. Now, with this partial government shutdown, there's been several things going on, including fights up there in DC as of lately, as to are they going to fund ICE or not? You got one side of the aisle says no because of ICE's record and the things that they've done, and you got the other side saying yay, let's fund ICE. Well, let me tell you this. A partial shutdown may sound smaller than a full shutdown, but the economic damage is broad, cascading, and immediate. Even when only some agencies close, the ripple effects hit workers, businesses, financial markets, and everyday families. Okay, so when we talk about the federal workers lose pay and consumer spending drops, let me tell you exactly what they're talking about. That is the agencies that are working. Okay, some of them might not even be getting paid. Well, again, TSA popped up on that list again, and so the situation with TSA, I want you to think about people was trying to do as many things as possible to help TSA. Now, I have to say this, which is kind of strange, but Tyler Perry tried to help TSA. He was giving them $1,000 gift cards. $1,000 gift cards. Now, let me tell you, the funny thing about that is the upper government, that is the federal government, told them that they had to give that gift card back. They had to give the gift card back, but these airplanes, these luxury cars, these luxury trips, these houses, these cabins, I mean, all the things that these politicians are getting, they don't have to give them back. They don't have to give them back. But you're working without pay, and somebody gives you $1,000. They say you got to give it back. Are they for real with that? You got to get that $1,000 gift card back, because if you don't, you're gonna get fired. But they're not actually pulled from either a congressperson, a senator, secretary of state, um, uh, 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 secretary of defense, that's president, vice president, all these cabinet folk that's getting all these elaborate gifts. They don't have to give them back. And it's clear that they're unethical, and that's against the ethical code. But they get to keep them. Sometimes they don't even mention them. I mean, you have to kind of like see how that's weighing. Okay? It's weighing that this side is good. Get whatever they want. This side, no. You can't do this unless I authorize it and I say no, because you can't have no kind of come up. But these are the people that's been elected. These people have been elected to represent us. So with this shutdown, this partial shutdown. Now, I mentioned earlier that, we're talking about the grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, local retail, child care providers, and rent and mortgage payments. All of that's going to be hindered. You're going to have problems. Now, if you can't pay your rent, they're going to evict you. If you pay the rent, you got to eat. And if you can't eat, that means you starve. And so to get to work, you're going to need gas, even though you're not being paid, but you got to get there. So what happens if you can't afford gas? You become a no-call, no-show if you don't get to work. So this is why the shutdown creates instant local recessions. In cities with large federal workforces like Atlanta, D.C., Norfolk, Virginia, and Huntsville, Alabama, there's more than that. These are places that, the shutdown hits these places really, really hard, because they depend on those federal workers and those federal dollars in order to make those cities grow and flow. That's what they depend on. So if it comes down to, folk actually having the opportunity to live and survive, it seems like that's not what the majority wants. They don't want you to have that. But what I want is, I want to hear from you all out here that's watching this show. I really do want to hear from you, because your opinion really does matter. Because you've got to say so in all of this. And that's with your vote. And so with federal agencies, when they stop functioning, and you've got economic losses, there's delayed payments that go to states and cities that support programs like Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, highway and transit projects, school and lunch programs. All of those are affected when you have that partial government shutdown. They're affected. And so with them being affected in such a way, what do you do when that happens? What do you do? The only thing you could do is to hope that these folk get some ethics within them to actually change things. Because if not, then that problem is going to continue to persist. So with this, financial markets, they react to uncertainty. And so with them reacting to that uncertainty, that means that they don't know what's going to happen and so forth. So it gets shaky, and people stop putting their money in that. let me just say this to you. I think all of you that have found the opportunity to go and deal with Bitcoin, I think you guys might want to really look at that before you keep putting your money into that, because there's no telling when that may shut down on you. Thank you so very kindly. I appreciate the comment. Let me put this on the screen. This is from Sam Camp. He says, "Great job. I appreciate it, and I just want to make sure that I appreciate you for doing this, but I want people to get some understanding here as to how these things are working and what's functioning, because it's very, very important that people know that they do have a say so. Just the thing is, there's so much that's happening that is preventing people from actually taking the time to sit back, relax, and just think, and then move forward with some kind of plan in order to make these changes. And that's what I just want to put the information out there, because I want to make sure that everybody knows that you do have options. And they said with this partial shutdown, the federal contractors are hit the hardest. Tourism and travel in national parks are also hit. But the shutdown costs more than it saves. And so what that means is that there's the pay that's got to be done, especially the back pay. The agency's got to restart operations, delayed projects become more expensive, contractors charge restart fees, and lost economic activity cannot be recovered. So clear as day, what they're saying here is that in order for the government that's going to these agencies that are going to reopen, everything comes to a standstill, it comes to a halt. But you have what's called essential personnel that should be there anyway. So if they're there, then that means that they should be able to keep this organization going as best as they possibly can until everybody's back at work. But the true call to that is that does not happen, because they feel like they are the chief, they are in charge, therefore it'll be here when you get back. And I can tell you from my personal experience and experiencing that, is that when these shutdowns happen, especially when we had the same occupier that's here in the White House now. That occupier was in the White House when I last worked, and I was a U.S. Government employee. I quit. I quit. There was no way that I was going to continue to sit there and deal with all of this craziness that's running around that's happening there. It's a whole lot of craziness. But people have a tendency to not want to call it what it is. Yeah. So the psychological and the global impact of this is shutdowns tell the world the U.S. government is unstable, Congress cannot govern, the U.S. dollar is vulnerable, and the U.S. economy is politically held hostage. Okay, and this weakens international confidence, trade negotiations, foreign investment, and America's global leadership. Now, when we look at that, we know that there's no leadership. We know that there's no leadership. We also know that because there is no leadership, we know that there are several individuals and people that are a part of the actual government have an agenda. That agenda has nothing to do with what's in the Constitution, It has no dealing with governing for the people. It has no idea, and it is not going to work for the people. And the laws of the land is what's being broken, and they continue to do the exact same thing. Which leads to my question again. How do we continuously vote the same people into office that has not delivered any change for you at all? Voting is your right. You need to exercise that right and vote. Exercise your right to vote, people. Exercise that right. And I will tell you this, and I want everybody to understand this. I think instead of these people that are being highly publicized and backed by these folk that are putting all these dollars in their pockets to do their bidding, I suggest each and every community find a person that he or she likes, that's got a lot of savvy to be to represent you for your district, whether it's the Senate or it's the Congress. You guys back that person. Do a write-in. You can do write-in campaigns. You can do a write-in campaign. It's a long way around in doing that, because what that does is it requires just as many signatures to get your name on the ballot, when you're doing a write-in campaign, because that has to be approved, of course, by the Secretary of State. Now, I'm here in Georgia, so, I'm not sure about our Secretary of State. I'm not sure about him. And so I can tell you that, you can normally tell when people are going to do the right thing by the people. But I can honestly tell you this, for all of these folk that are committing all of these heinous crimes and things like this that they're doing, their day is coming. Their day is coming. And their day is coming because, you get to see the writing on the wall for the things that happen after the results of all the bad things that these people are doing. But the thing that makes it even worse is that you'll have people in mainstream media that's got all these criminals that are doing all these things that are wrong. Everything that's wrong. And they can get up on TV and say, this is a good man, or this is a good woman. Are you kidding me? They can miss all of us with that Jedi mind trick, because there ain't nothing good about somebody that's actually committing big crimes, that's causing you harm, that's causing you as a taxpayer to have to make up for a shortfall that he or she is getting away with. Make that make sense for me. Tell me about that. So the bottom line to this is a partial government shutdown slows consumer spending, hurts workers and contractors, delays loans and mortgages, disrupts state budgets, shakes financial markets, damages tourism, costs more than it saves, and undermines global confidence in the U.S. economy. Well, that's nothing new. That's nothing new. Because, when all of this is happening, these people should be on top of their game doing what they're supposed to be doing. But they're not. It's so all about money. And we're watching America at this very moment as we're speaking now. We're watching the American government being robbed right in front of our eyes, stealing all this money right in front of our eyes. And no one has actually said the one thing that they need to say. These are criminals that need to be brought up on charges and name them by name. You see, this is what I'm talking about with mainstream media. You can't trust it. You can't trust it because it's never going to tell you the truth. Because when you get these blackouts like they got now, it's a shame that that's being controlled by another country that's not America. But blackout or not, you work for the people, and if the people are paying you, then you need to do what you need to be doing. Don't sit there and steal, and then sit there and say, uh, "Oh, we're not stealing. This is just going over to such a place because this is where it belongs, and we have to put it over here." Again, mind trick. So another thing here, how this hurts the U.S. economy with this partial shutdown. A partial shutdown happens when Congress fails to pass funding for some, but not all federal agencies. Even though parts of the government stay open, the economic damage spreads across the entire country. So workers lose pay, spending drops immediately because people are not going to be spending money. Small businesses and home buyers, they get stuck. The SBA small business loans, FHA and USDA mortgages, federal grants, permitting and inspections, IRS customer service. All of that falters when you have this government shutdown or this partial shutdown because it's just there to where nothing's coming in, but there's still stuff going out. Don't make sense, but it does. Um, small businesses can't access capital. Home closings are delayed. Construction projects stall. Hospitals, schools, and nonprofits lose reimbursements. So, three states and cities lose federal funding. Even during the shutdown, states may even during the shutdown, states must keep programs running. That is Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, school meals, and transportation projects. Okay, even though they've lost that funding, they still have to keep that going because the impact of that is that it drains the emergency funds, local services are cut, and hiring freezes and budget shortfalls, they spread. So in that instance, what they're doing is they're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. So once they pay Paul, Paul is still there because Paul is still need more money. So when they start hiring freezes and firing people and things of that nature, this is trying to make up for the shortfall right now instead of doing something for a longer term. So it still creates a problem. And the financial markets, the way they react to this instability, they fluctuate, they running up and down like they got lights going like crazy because it doesn't know what to do. It has the slightest idea about what it's going to do. So, with this, a partial shutdown, it slows the economy, hurts workers, disrupts businesses, and undermines global confidence in the United States. Even when only part of the government closes, the economic damage is broad, deep, and unnecessary. So, even with that, I can go a little bit deeper into this because, with this impact, it affects black and brown communities more harshly than it does any other community. And so, what that does is that it actually hurts these people in a lot of ways. I actually have a community fact sheet that I'm going to put up, and I will make it accessible for each and every last one of you to get this fact sheet because It's really important, especially moving forward. And when it moves forward, hey, we have the opportunity to learn some things as to why things are still going on. But I will actually put these up and I will put it on social media and have you guys actually get that fact sheet. Uh, so let's talk about why prices are still rising. So most of you might know that when the occupier took over the White House in 2025, the occupier came in and decided that he would start this thing with tariffs. Where that came from, nobody knows. Well, at least I don't know of anybody that knows. And I can say that for the time, for the time that the occupier was there and has been there in this White House, that everything that I heard in that campaign, I've seen none of that. As a matter of fact, I've seen just the opposite. I see just the difference. And so the things that started this, you know, is that the tariffs are still working their way through the economy. Now, I want you to think about this because they lagged and they're running through. They're supposed to actually, even though there's instantaneous effects from them, they're supposed to fully integrate themselves through the economy. I'm not sure if it's by the end of the second year or if it's by the end of the term, but they're working their way through to fully be integrated. Okay. There's a tighter labor market, especially due to reduced immigration. And so what that means is there's an enormous amount of jobs now that are open, especially those in agriculture. Most people that are not favored don't have a favorite part of agriculture, whatever have you. They still are affected by this, and there's a large and growing federal deficit. GDP right now has exceeded 7%. Monetary policy is still looser than it appears, which means that it's still all over the place. They do not have that under control. Inflation expectations are drifting upward. They are moving and they are moving fast. Affordability pressure in key sectors. Again, another thing that's causing more of a problem here on the economy. And then you got tariffs plus immigration plus uncertainty, crosswinds that actually also adds to the deficit. Now, what needs to happen is the prices, in order for prices to come down, tariffs pressures must ease. Okay? They're saying that even if they don't stop, they've got to ease these. You know, labor market conditions, they must loosen, which means that we've got to get people employed again. Fiscal policy must tighten. And the Federal Reserve must maintain or increase tight monetary policy. Inflation expectations must stabilize. Key sector costs must cool. So, what this brings down to the big picture is economists broadly agree on this. Inflation is cooling, but not fast enough and not back to pre pandemic norms. So most forecasts expect inflation to remain above 2% through 26, with some warnings it could rise again if tariffs, deficits, and labor shortage continue. So they're telling us that we've got to either create a manufacturer that is all products, that is from food to whatever the product may be, and we make it what we need it to be. Because in using these markets, apparently, it's a big thing, to where it's not going to be helpful, when it comes to the economy and the prices. The prices are still rising. They're going to continue to rise because we've got several things that's contributing to them. And so these things that are contributing to them, we've got to find ways that we can actually, find somebody that, find another great economic policy person, that's able, to work through the financial markets, GDP, and the things that are really causing inflation. They've got to really work together to come up with something that's going to solve this, because it needs to be solved. If it's not solved, then it's going to cause us a whole nother problem, a whole other problem. And that's something that we do not want. We don't want that. But it looks like, regardless of the case, it's something that's just going to happen. So now we have to find a way to prepare for this. And how we prepare for this is this way. That is, you think about, it may seem drastic, but let's say you're thinking about an end of the world crisis. And so what you're going to be doing now is you need to be stocking up on everything from perishables to water. You need to be on all of that, because you don't know and you never know what can happen or what will happen with excuse me with the folk that are actually controlling and contributing to this, because everything they're doing is really negative. And so anytime you see prices shooting like they're shooting now, and then they want to blame it on oil prices and things of that nature, oil is just one of the factors that go into that. It's just one of the factors. And so even if that's just one of the factors, the thing that you have to understand is that it's not it's direct, but it's not direct when it comes to our economy. Because, the oil that's being sold, especially in the Middle East, it was sold it was sold based on what they call the US dollar, the petrodollar. The petrodollar is dying. And the death is not a slow death, it's a fast death. It's dying. Our thing is, we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready for that. And how do we get ready for that? We get ready for that by doing the right thing to serve the people here in this country. When you think about the actual dollar does not, uh, well, right now it's strongly strong because of the oil being sold in US dollars. But just from the overall perspective, because our economy is tanking really fast, and it's tanking fast because everything that's gone into actually building it, starting in 2025, has been reversed, and and they now the deficit is up to more than $10 trillion, more than $10 trillion. So if you got more than $10 trillion in debt, how the hell are you going to pay that off? it's saying already bad enough that you don't want to pay bills, but you've racked up this kind of debt. It- It's crazy. So, I will tell you guys this also. I have a guide that I too am going to post up on social media for you guys to actually get a copy of this guide, which it can shed lots and lots of light on these things that are happening and what we can do about it. My next thing here is we're going to be talking about this war in Iran. This war in Iran also is one of those factors that's contributing to the inflation as well. Now, we talk about the oil over in the Middle East, and they are selling it with the petrodollar. The petrodollar, that's pretty much almost gone. So, what's what's happening now is with Iran closing the Straits of Hormuz, and they're letting tankers go through where the that are only buying oil in the Chinese yuan. And so you got the yuan, then you can get the oil. Anything other than that is not going to happen. Now, people talk about, what's happening there, and um, folks are doing the blame game and pointing fingers and so forth when we all know that had the U.S. not killed the Ayatollah, we would not be in this situation. The U.S. killed the Ayatollah based on talks and things that they got from Israel. Now we know Israel wants to be or take over Iran. What he failed to realize is that Iran was not joking. What they have done is they make the U.S. and Israel look like idiots and complete fools, which I really do not understand. What would make you want to go and attack these people? That was crazy. Now we're in a war where lives are being lost for no reason because there is nothing that's over in Iraq or Iran that we want to go over there and just take over or try to tell somebody what to do. Now, I want to hear from each of you. How is it that let's say we're in Jacksonville, Florida, and you live on the north side. I live on the west side. And you're like doing whatever you want to over there on the north side. I'm not doing what you're doing on the west side, but I'm happy and everybody where we are, we're happy. You want to come to the west side and you're going to tell me that I have to do everything that you're doing, how you tell me to do it, when you tell me to do it, and I have to get your approval before it's done. Now, I want all of you out there that's listening to me and tell me who can come into your house on your property and tell you what you're going to do. I don't see no more right than anything in the world for anybody to say that Iran should not have capabilities to build a nuke. That's not for you to decide. You don't live there. You don't live there. And forget about the bullshit about politics and talking about, oh, how will you do things as allies and how you come together to do all these different things. No, because all of you guys are just like what you call a gang. That's a gang. That's a gang. Because you say all of you are the big countries, you all are the big guys, And so you get to decide how the world is going to be ran. No, that's not the way that works. I would not care if it was 5 million of you. You're not going to come in my house and tell me that I can't do what I want to do. No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. If you're paying this mortgage, then that means that this property is yours. You ain't paying this mortgage. You cannot go into somebody's house and tell them what they can and cannot do. The logical thing about that is that so many people have gone along with that old guard because it meant something different then. This is how the conquering of all of Africa, this is how it took place. Because the gang of 12 came in to overthrow and to steal. That's from culture to everything. And so now you think you can go over into Iran and you want to tell Iran what they can and cannot do. No, you cannot do that. Them people are living their lives and can give less than a care what you're doing in the U.S. But because Israel told you that this is what they're doing and this is what they want you to do, this is what you did. So you, Donald Trump, listen to Netanyahu that's got you in this war with Iran that ain't used not one nuke at all and is making the U.S. and Israel look like complete idiots. It's gotten Haifa, it's like just been destroyed. Other parts of Israel is destroyed. All of the eyeballs in the sky that's over in that region of the country, Iran has destroyed. Planes that America have that cost $5 and $6 billion have been shot out the sky and destroyed. Now you're using all of these taxpayer dollars. You're going over there, you're messing with them folk. And them folk ain't messing with you. And they making you look like a fool. They making both of y'all look like a fool. Again, I just want to know what would make you think you can go into somebody else's country and tell them what they can and cannot do. Only those that are weak will agree to that. And Iran is not weak at all. As a matter of fact, the whole entire region is on notice. They're on notice, and they're letting you know this right now. And they're saying the only way that this stops is you get your ass out of that region of the country, of the world. Now, you either going to get out of that region of the country, or you're going to continue to be obliterated. Prices go sky high here with everything because nothing's coming through. Nothing's going to come through. Nothing. But by the time they get through showing you what it is to be mild-mannered, I would have been nervous. I would have been nervous when you made that threat to them, what you was going to do, and the Ayatollah said, okay, come on, do what you got to do. They're letting you know they're not afraid. Everybody around the world knows that they can defend themselves. All but you. All but you. A country of 9 million people is running this country here with more than 350 million people. What can you tell the American people about that? And everybody knows that it links back to the Epstein files. That's where this links back to. So you guys can either be grown and accept what you've done and make amends and build this country the way it's supposed to be built, or you continue to get your ass whooped. that is like the most, oh my God, I can't believe it, but it's true. It's true. It's true. Some won't say it, but you're hearing it today. Yes, Iran is kicking ass. And they're letting you know you don't come into my house and tell me what I'm going to do. Now, your allies have left you. They've left you. They refuse to be a part of this because they know the consequences. You apparently don't. You apparently don't know the consequences. Now, France is transferring gold into other bonds and everything of that nature. They've moved that place where they kept their gold. The UK wants no part of this war because they're not sending their troops to be killed in something that's so unnecessary. They do not agree with this. Italy just told you they're not going to participate in this and they don't want you flying through their airspace. Spain does not want you flying through their airspace. This is real. This ain't fake. This is real. And now all of us here in America are suffering behind these crazy moves that we know has nothing whatsoever to do with us. Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just tell you like this. I think that as all of this is happening and unfolding, I will say this to all of you, all of us as the American people. When you see what's happening in both Haifa and Tel Aviv and how Iran has totally obliterated those places, I want you to think about this. When you know something's not right, that means that you remedy it. And how you remedy that is you have to get your mind in the game and stop letting people divide you from other folk because they are telling you a bunch of bull about people doing this, that, and the other to you that's affecting you when it's not those people. It's the top 1%. It's the top 1% that's doing all of this. They're the benefactors in all of this. As long as this division continues, they're only going to get more and more of what they want. Because they can care less if poverty, homelessness, people can't pay for rent or whatever have you. They don't care about all of that. What they're caring about is the money that they're putting in their pockets. They're caring about all of us that's got money to spend that's going to continue to patronize them in these establishments. Stop being afraid of what is the inevitable problem. That is, stop patronizing these people. Stop patronizing them. Because as long as they got your money, they got you. As long as they believe they got you dependent, then they got you. If they don't have you, then it's easy for you to move on, do what you need to do, and forget about what you think is what's quality and what's not quality. Because if you think that having products that come from sweatshops is supposed to be top notch, then I want you to think about your ethics and morals. because that's a real thing. There is no reason that each and every last one of us that know right from wrong cannot get together to unite and to build and to get rid of all of this foolishness, because this is the very thing that's going to lead and take us down the wrong path. We're already on the wrong path, but it's going to make it even worse and more devastating. This war in Iran should never have happened. It should never have happened. But you know, when you think you're a bully, because this is what bullies do. You know, you like to run into other people's places and tell them what they can and cannot do, what you will do and how you gonna do it. But once the bully gets punched in the nose and gets beat down, then you're sitting there looking like a fool because now you can't show your face. And you can't show your face because everybody's seeing you on the national stage get your ass whooped. Everybody's seeing it. So if you got your ass whooped then, what makes you think that you trying to put the U.S. against the world is going to work? There ain't no power to that. None. That don't even come close to even making sense. But that's what you're trying to do because you're saying the U.S. is the world on its own. And I think any of us that are proud military veterans, veterans of today, military leaders, and some that are in the civilian sector that haven't even been a part of that can understand that that's a dumb idea. That does not work. That will never work. And so now what you going to do? You're going to have people just come and volunteer their sons and daughters to go and fight? Where are your children? Put your children out there. Put your children out there. Let them go be some heroes. They talk all that good talk just like you. Send your children out there. Let them go fight. But you see, what actually is not going to happen, one, you ain't going to see their kids out there. You don't see their kids out there. They're going to take your sons and daughters and they're going to put them in harm's way because that's much easier. That's much easier. They don't want to live that same nightmare that they're giving you. And then we're going to talk about some ethics. But losing these allies, this is something that this means more than you can ever imagine. Because allies don't just watch the war, they judge it. European and Asian partners are already anxious about energy prices, migration, and domestic politics. A prolonged war with Iran that spikes oil prices and destabilizes the region makes them question, is the U.S. acting strategically or impulsively? Are we safer with them or more exposed because of them? The answer is latter. You're more exposed because you were part of the Allies. And the U.S. is the leader against Iran. Well, of course, they're being the leader because Israel told them you have to be the leader and get out there and you go and fight Iran. That's what's happening. But what's sad is that it's so many of us that know that this is wrong but refuse to say anything about it. And say, I don't know if that's worse than anything else because I don't know how, we could all sit here, be affected by the most craziest thing in the world by the person that's got the least experience of anything and the person that's actually used the office while occupying the office in Washington, D.C., has come out to be a billionaire. Really? This is why I don't understand why, these people that we've elected into office. I'm sorry, people, but we've got to start looking at these people more closely because, I mean, if you want to know the truth between the Congress and the Senate, and the Senate has 100 senators. The Congress has something like, I want to say it's like 536 Congress people. Do you know that 80%, 80% of them are under the influence of APAC? 80%. So now when we think about, logically thinking, when we think about why there's never policy to create, help, rebuild, and continuously do the right thing for Black and brown communities, we know why that's never happened. That is the very reason. But we can send trillions of dollars in aid across the water. And that's considered a problem. That's not a problem, I mean. Because it was a problem, and I want to be the starter of that fire. Start yelling this more from the mountaintops. Let everybody hear it. Let everybody hear this because it's needed. We all need this. Ain't nobody trying to overthrow no government. We trying to get these officials removed. Let's vote their asses out. Let's vote them out. Y'all know early voting is going to be starting soon in most places. Y'all know that the midterm elections is in November. Time to start now. Remember, when you go to the polls to vote, make sure you take your passport with you. Make sure you take your passport because you don't want no games because the shiggity is going to get real. Take your passport with you when you go to the polls. Driver's license, passport, same address. This is me. Just so you know, it's going to start. And so what I want you guys to know also about this war is that now America is right there on the cliff of collapse financially. These trillions of dollars in debt, I don't know how that's going to get paid because this war itself is costing some billions per day. Billions with a B. And so with this war alone, the deficit is, well, we were already at the $10 trillion mark anyway. But with this war, we're like we're plus $10 trillion in debt. Now remember, all of you that went and voted for Republicans, which is that top 1%, you went and you voted for this, and now this is what we get. We get because it's for all of us, but you voted for it. Where's the accountability on that? Are you going to be held accountable? Or do you want to be accountable? No, because your ass is too ashamed to say that you voted for this idiot that's got us into this war. And now that's why all of us that did not vote for him are sitting back, relaxing, and watching you all go out there and do that fight. Because that's your fight. That ain't ours. That's your fight. We're going to sit back and watch you. We're going to let you do all of that. And let's see, how do you like that? You're not liking that too well, are you? Not liking that too well. So, with the energy shock and the inflation spiral, the Strait of Hormuz is a global choke point. About a fifth of the world's oil and a major share of LNG flows through it. Now, see, Iran is showing you how to be the bully because they say, oh no, no, the Straits of Hormuz is closed. You can't come through unless you check with me. You can't come through unless you check with me. If you don't check with me, then you're not coming through. And if you do, and you are a supporter or an ally of the U.S., you're not coming through. You can't come through. And if you come through, you're going to get some mines there and they're going to blow you up. Now, that's horrible, right? But is it as horrible as the chokehold that was done on Iran's economy for the last 50 years? Now, how do you weigh that? And that's not about, oh, the morals. Oh, two wrongs don't make a right. See, I want to tell you this. I think when we get people that sit here and you have the gall to just really think that there's nothing that you do that you need to be held accountable for, that's a problem. Because that's one thing I learned as a kid is I got to be accountable for my actions and I know what's morally right and what's morally wrong. So I know what to do and what not to do. But if I think I can just continue to steal everything that I want because I'm so used to stealing and because I've policed the world and everything is about me, then that means that I can just do this. So now because Iran fights back, they're considered the bad person or the bad people? No, no, no. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way because I hate war. I hate all of that. Ain't none of that good. But what I'm saying is that unless you learn to be more of a peace person and go throughout the world and do what you're supposed to do and not be sitting there trying to flex muscle, then you know everything should be fine. But you know, when you're part of that top 1%, you know, it's because you feel like, oh, I got the power. I got the juice. I can do whatever I want. I can buy this if I want. I mean, how dare you go and spend some of them folk done went and spent hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on a wedding. Forget about world hunger and the people that are contributing to these products that you're selling. They don't get nothing back. So Iran is showing you you don't get none of this oil unless you pay for it in the yuan. And if you pay for it in the yuan, then you can get some. As long as you're not a U.S. ally, you can come through the straits. It's open. It's open for everybody other than the U.S. and its allies. So what's wrong with that? Somebody tell me what's wrong with that. Tell me what's wrong with that. Because you see, again, once you build yourself off thievery, it comes back. It comes back. So what this war means there in the Straits of Hormuz is disrupted shipping, higher insurance and freight costs, and oil prices spiking over $120 to $150 per barrel in the worst case scenarios. So we're already at the $120 mark. But you see, this is where you get the con game that comes in. Because so people know that the insurance company that they're talking about, one of them is Lloyd's of London. It's Lloyd's of London. They're one of the insurance companies. They're not innocent either. They're not innocent either. So I think what Iran is doing is they're sending a message to the whole world. And I think all of us need to be taking notice. All of us need to be taking notice. So, higher gas prices, higher transportation and food costs, renewed inflation after people are already exhausted by the last wave. So when they're exhausted by that last wave, what that means, no dollar. No dollar. Now, what do you think happens if the US economy collapses? Do you know what happens? You go. I want y'all to think about the market crash of 1911 when them folk was jumping all off them buildings and running in front of cars and killing themselves. You see, at that time was the same thing. You repressed and you stole so much from people that you thought the world was yours. But when that market crash, when Black Sunday arrived, you quickly saw different because now you really were equal. That's a harsh reality, but I'll tell you this. It looks like a lot of people need that harsh reality because they're not seeing the world for what it is, what it's worth, and what it can do for everybody. This is about everybody. This ain't just about no one segment of the population, but they've sown a seed of divide that's so horrible that I don't even know if those people that even hearing the truth could even imagine what the truth is like. Because when you imagine what the truth is like and you know what's right and what you need to do, that's where I think it sinks in and they say, no, no, I can't do it. No, I can't do it. Those same people will go and vote for Donald Trump again. If he got the opportunity to run again, those same people will vote for him again. They really would. And that's the sad thing. That's the sad thing. Because you see, I think I call that the short game. But I think most people now are playing the long game. And what the long game is, yes, I can be diplomatic and I have to pick my spots as to what I disagree with and why I disagree with it. Those people aren't thinking that way. And so the impact on everyone, not in the top 1%, is everyday costs will explode. That is gas prices, food prices, and utilities. Jobs and wages are under pressure, which we're seeing now because companies are laying off people like crazy. They are just letting people go. And so if there's no wages, then that means that, money is not flowing and circulating. And if that's the case, then, if wages get to be like they are, that's going to cause upticks in a lot of things. Social services and safety nets will be strained. So, the programs like the WIC and things of that nature, those things will definitely be strained. And the psychological and civic impact for those not in the top 1%, the message can feel like you pay the higher prices, your kids fight the wars, your neighborhoods lose funding, your voice doesn't change the decisions. And that breeds the cynicism, disengagement, or explosive anger. That's what all this leads to. That's the nutshell right there. That is the nutshell. So I'm going to say to all of y'all again that I really hope that you all are really listening to this and you got something out of this because I want you to know that it's important to me that I just tell you from what I know of and how things are. I'm not taking you to the water and I'm saying, oh, you going to drink this water. I'm not doing Donald Trump. What I'm doing is I'm just giving you this information. And I want you to take this information and I want you to use it in the most responsible way as possible. Because when it comes to me, I do know this. I do not And I repeat, I do not support any of this wartime situation. I do not. I do not support these folk that are in Washington, D.C. at this point. That is from the occupier that's in the White House, the cabinet that the occupier has, that is the people in the Senate and the people in the House. I don't trust any of those people, especially with all of them taking APAC money. Because if they're taking APAC money, that means that most likely, in some shape, form, or fashion, and I'm saying this right now, that they are probably going to be connected to Jeffrey Epstein. They are going to be connected to Jeffrey Epstein. I can say that unequivocally. And I think when that time comes, I don't want people to have your mouth open and your jaws dropping. Just remember, you know why, and you know that it's true. Next time, I'll tell you the names of those that are affiliated with APAC, because there's a whole lot of them, and I know there will be a lot of surprises for a lot of people for some of the names that you see there. I know there will be a lot of names that will shock a lot of people. But but at any rate, the deeper loss is America risks becoming, after losing all of this money and everything, is a loss of moral clarity. When because of this war, the loss of strategic discipline, when the short-term emotion drives the outcome of what we're seeing now, and the loss of internal cohesion, when everything is just all over the place. Nobody wants to be affiliated with the other because these people are doing this, that, and the other, and a lot of people are just not for that kind of drama. I'm going to cut this off right now, and I will tell you guys this. Like I said, I'm going to put up a guide as well as a fact sheet that I'm going to put out on social media. And I want you guys to take the opportunity to get that fact sheet and to get that guide, because it's going to be very important that you use it in your communities. And I just want you to make sure that when we think of all the things that we're doing, that we think about it from a unity perspective. Because if we don't get unified, then everything goes to shackles. And we don't want to have that happen in that manner. So I want to thank you guys for joining us, and let me do my closing monologue. And I want to thank you guys in advance for being here. And I'll say it to you like this. Tonight's conversation was about truth, not the polished version, not the political version, but the real version. The version that affects your wallet, your family, your community, and your future. We're living in a time where the American people must be more informed, more engaged, and more entitled than ever before, because the systems shaping our lives are not slowing down, and neither can we. Remember, knowledge is power, awareness is protection, action is transformation. Thank you for joining me for this solo episode of America in Black and White. Stay informed, stay empowered, and stay committed to building a better future for all of us. I'm your host, Charles King. You guys have a great night. Thank you.